We're counting down the 20 British working man's dinners no one makes anymore. These are the meals that fueled the factories, the shipyards and the mines, dishes carried in tin boxes and eaten in canteen queues, now vanished from the tables they once anchored. From dense puddings that kept dockers on their feet, to cheap cuts that fed a family on a day's wage, each entry tells the story of a Britain that worked with its hands and ate what it could afford. Expect calorie-laden classics, forgotten cuts, and flavors forged in the smoke and sweat of industrial life. Which lost dinner tops our list? Let's begin our countdown with number 20. Cheese and onion pudding steamed in cloths across the industrial north, a dish so dense it could carry a man through a double shift. Housewives mixed grated cheese with chopped onion, bound the lot with suet pastry, and boiled it for hours until the kitchen filled with a savory fog. By 1955, cheese and onion pudding appeared in the lunch pails of factory workers from Bradford to Burnley, its hefty slices eaten cold with mustard. The taste was sharp and satisfying, the cheese melting into the suet to create something almost meaty. Oral histories recall the pride in a well-made batch and the way a single pudding could stretch across days. Yet cheese and onion pudding could not survive the sandwich revolution. As sliced bread and processed cheese filled the lunchbox, the boiled pudding faded from memory. Today, it survives only in the stories of those who remember when dinner came wrapped in a cloth. Number 19. Bacon pudding fed the agricultural workers of East Anglia when the fields stretched long and the pay stretched thin. Housewives rolled out suet pastry, layered it with rashers of streaky bacon and sliced onion, then tied the lot in a cloth and boiled it until the fat rendered. By 1952, bacon pudding appeared on cottage tables across Norfolk and Suffolk, its dense, savory slices the answer to mornings that started before dawn. The taste was rich and salty, the bacon fat soaking into the suet. Children ate thick slices for tea, not knowing their supper was the food of field hands stretching back generations. Oral histories recall the ritual of the boiling pot and the way the pudding was sliced still steaming. Yet bacon pudding could not survive the supermarket age. As ready meals filled the freezers and cloth-wrapped parcels seemed old-fashioned, the recipe faded. Today, bacon pudding is a memory, preserved only in the farmhouses of those who refuse to forget. Number 18. Boiled beef and carrots rang through the music halls of London as the anthem of the working man, a dish so beloved it earned its own song. Butchers sold silverside or brisket by the pound, knowing that hours of simmering with carrots and dumplings would transform the tough cut into something tender. By 1954, boiled beef appeared on tables across the East End, its steaming slices served with peas pudding and cooking liquor. The smell drifted through terraced streets, a signal that the working day was done. Children fished for the softest carrots, fathers claimed the fatty end, and mothers stretched leftovers into sandwiches. Oral histories recall the Sunday boil, the pride in a well-cooked joint, and the way the dish united generations. Yet boiled beef could not survive the supermarket revolution. The cheap cuts vanished, replaced by portions too lean to give the broth its body. Today, boiled beef and carrots survive in pie and mash shops, and in the memories of those who still hum the old song. Herrings in oatmeal brought the taste of the sea to Scottish tables when the fishing boats returned. Fishwives coated fresh herrings in coarse oatmeal and fried them in bacon fat until the coating crisped and the flesh turned flaky. By 1956, herrings appeared on breakfast tables from Aberdeen to Arbroath, their golden crusts the taste of coastal Scotland. The smell divided families but sustained generations. Children picked at the bones, fathers ate with relish, and mothers served with quiet pride. The oatmeal soaked up the fish oils, creating a crust that shattered at the touch of a fork. Oral histories recall the Friday herring, the competition for the roe, and the satisfaction of a dish born from sea and field. Yet herrings in oatmeal could not survive the supermarket age. Fresh herrings vanished as stocks declined and tastes changed. Today, the dish survives only in coastal towns and the kitchens of those who remember when breakfast meant fish. Number 16. Spam fritters carried the taste of wartime necessity into the decades that followed. Housewives sliced the pink, salty blocks, dipped them in batter, and fried them until golden. By 1958, spam fritters appeared on chip shop menus and school dinner plates across Britain, their crispy shells and soft centers the answer to tight budgets. The batter elevated the humble tin into something children actually wanted to eat. Chip shop queues snaked out the door, workers ordering fritters with chips and a pickled egg. Oral histories recall the weekly fritter, the arguments over mushy peas versus curry sauce, and the satisfaction of hot food on cold nights. Yet spam fritters could not survive changing tastes. As the tinned meat became a punchline, the fritter faded from menus. Today, spam fritters survive in a scattering of traditional chippies and the nostalgia of those who grew up when tinned meat was simply what you ate. Number 15. Chip butty stood as the monarch of the northern lunch, a sandwich so simple it needed nothing but chips, bread, and a willingness to embrace carbohydrates. Workers queued at Chippies during their dinner break, ordering chips pressed between slices of white bread, slathered with butter and doused in salt and vinegar. By 1960, chip butties fueled factory workers and miners across Lancashire and Yorkshire. The taste was of comfort, the chips softening the bread into something almost cake-like, the vinegar cutting through the starch. Children ate them after school. Fathers ate them at the football. Oral histories recall the arguments over white versus brown bread and the fierce loyalty to a sandwich that asked nothing and gave everything. Yet the chip butty could not survive the health-conscious age. As carbohydrates became the enemy, the starchy sandwich retreated. Today, chip butties survive in the North as a badge of identity, but the everyday dinner they once represented has largely vanished. Pie and mash with liquor anchored the East End table, with a loyalty that no supermarket could shake. Pie shops filled sturdy pastry cases with minced beef, baked until golden, then served with mashed potato and a lake of green parsley liquor. By 1955, pie and mash shops dotted every high street from Bermondsey to Bow, packed with dockers and families seeking a cheap, filling dinner. The liquor, made from eel cooking water, was thin and herby, the mash smooth, the pie dense with filling. Children sat on wooden benches learning to eat with fork and spoon, while fathers ordered seconds. Oral histories recall the clatter of the shops, the steaming windows, and the fierce pride in a dish that belonged to London alone. Yet pie and mash could not survive the changing city. As the docks closed and communities scattered, the old shops followed. Today, a handful keep the tradition alive, but the everyday dinner that fed the East End has largely vanished. Number 13. Singin hinnies warmed Northumberland farmhouse kitchens, griddle cakes, so named for the sizzle they made on the hot plate. Housewives mixed flour, lard, and currants into soft dough, rolled it flat, and cooked on cast iron until the edges browned. By 1954, Singin hinnies appeared on tea tables across the northeast. The cakes were split hot, spread with butter, and eaten with strong tea. Children watched mothers flip the cakes, learning that the singing sound meant supper was nearly ready. The taste was simple but comforting, the lard giving richness that modern versions cannot match. Oral histories recall the afternoon hinnie, the pride in a properly cooked batch and the way the griddle was never quite cool. Yet Singin hinnies could not survive the supermarket age. As convenience foods filled shelves and griddles gathered dust, the recipe faded. Today, Singin hinnies survive in farm shops, and the memories of those who grew up when tea meant griddle cakes. Number 12. Clootie dumpling crowned the Scottish table on birthdays and hogmanay. It was a boiled pudding so dense it could anchor a celebration. Housewives mixed flour, suet, dried fruit, treacle, and spices. They wrapped the lot in a floured cloth and boiled it for hours until dark and fragrant. By 1956, Clootie dumpling appeared on tables from the Highlands to the Lowlands, served hot with custard or fried for breakfast. The skin that formed where cloth met pudding was prized for its chewy texture. Children searched for the charms hidden inside, learning the dumpling was more than food. Oral histories recall the careful tying of the cloth and the anticipation as the pudding was turned out. Yet Clootie dumpling could not survive the modern kitchen. As boiling cloth seemed old-fashioned and ready-made desserts filled freezers, the recipe faded. Today, Clootie dumpling survives in Scottish bakeries and the kitchens of those who refuse to let it die. Number 11. Staffordshire oatcakes fueled the potteries when the kilns burned hot, and workers needed something filling. Bakers mixed oatmeal, flour, and yeast into a thin batter, poured it onto hot griddles, and cooked it until the surface bubbled and set. By 1958, oatcake shops dotted Stoke-on-Trent, their counters crowded with workers seeking breakfast or tea. The oatcakes were folded around bacon, eggs, cheese, or sausage, creating meals eaten on the move. The taste was earthy and slightly sour, the texture soft and pliable. Children ate them on the way to school, fathers carried them to the factory. Oral histories recall the oatcake queue, the arguments over fillings, and the fierce local pride. Yet Staffordshire oatcakes could not survive unchanged. As the potteries closed and communities scattered, the oatcake shops followed. Today, oatcakes survive in a handful of traditional shops, but the everyday breakfast that fueled the kilns has largely vanished. Potted hough brought the taste of thrift to Scottish working tables. It was a jellied meat so economical, it made use of shin and bone together. Butchers sold hough, knowing hours of simmering would draw out gelatin and create a dish that set firm when cold. Housewives boiled the meat until it fell from the bone, shredded it fine, then poured everything into molds to set overnight. By 1953, potted hough appeared on tables across Scotland, its trembling slices eaten cold with oatcakes and pickles. The taste was rich and beefy, the texture dense, the cost almost nothing. Children spread slices on bread, fathers ate with relish. Oral histories recall the patience required for setting, and the satisfaction of a cold supper that asked nothing of the cook. Yet potted hough could not survive the supermarket revolution. The cut vanished from counters, and the skills faded. Today, potted hough survives only in Scottish butchers and the kitchens of those who remember. Colcannon warmed Irish and British tables alike. It was a dish of mashed potatoes and cabbage, so simple it needed nothing but butter and hunger. Housewives boiled potatoes and cabbage separately, mashed them together with butter and milk, then served the mixture in steaming mounds with a well of melted butter pooling in the center. By 1955, Colcannon appeared on tables across the industrial northwest, where Irish communities had settled. The taste was mild and comforting, the texture smooth with ribbons of green, the butter soaking into every forkful. Children carved rivers in the mash, watching the butter flow, while fathers ate in silence after long shifts. Oral histories recall the Colcannon supper and the way it stretched a few potatoes into a meal for many. Yet Colcannon could not survive unchanged. As instant mash and frozen vegetables filled shelves, the slow ritual faded. Today, Colcannon survives as a side dish, but the main course suppers it once anchored have largely vanished. Number 8. Deviled kidneys on toast. Deviled kidneys sizzled on working-class breakfast plates when offal was cheap and protein was precious. Housewives split lamb's kidneys, removed the cores, and fried them fast in butter with mustard, Worcestershire sauce, and cayenne, until the outside crisped and the inside stayed pink. By 1954, deviled kidneys appeared on breakfast and high tea plates across Britain, their piquant flavor the taste of honest eating. The sauce was mopped up with toast, leaving nothing behind. Children eyed the kidneys with suspicion, but fathers ate with gusto. Oral histories recall the smell of frying kidneys and the sharp hit of mustard cutting through the richness. Yet deviled kidneys could not survive changing tastes. As offal became unfashionable, the dish faded from breakfast tables. Today, deviled kidneys survive in gentlemen's clubs and nostalgic cookbooks, but the working-class breakfasts they once anchored have vanished. Welsh rarebit stood as the working man's answer to what to eat when the larder held nothing but cheese, bread, and a little beer. Housewives melted cheese with ale, mustard, and Worcestershire sauce, poured it over thick toast and grilled it until bubbling and golden. By 1956, Welsh rarebit appeared on tea tables across Britain, its sharp richness the taste of comfort when times were lean. The sauce formed a crust that shattered at the first bite. Children ate it after school, workers after shifts, and everyone agreed that rarebit was more than cheese on toast. Oral histories recall the arguments over proper mustard strength and the satisfaction of a meal that cost pennies but tasted like plenty. Yet Welsh rarebit could not survive the microwave age. As convenience foods offered speed without effort, sauce-making seemed unnecessary. Today, Welsh rarebit survives in pubs and the kitchens of those who know the difference. Fidget pie brought the taste of the harvest to Shropshire tables. It was a dish that married bacon and apples under a golden pastry lid. Housewives layered sliced potatoes with chunks of bacon and rings of cooking apple, seasoned with sage and a little sugar. They sealed the lot under short-crust pastry and baked it until the pastry turned crisp and the filling bubbled. By 1955, fidget pie appeared on tables across the West Midlands. Its sweet and savoury filling was the taste of autumn and the reward for the harvest work done. The apples softened into the bacon fat, the potatoes absorbed the juices, and the pastry held the lot together in a parcel of comfort. Children ate thick slices, not questioning why apples belonged with bacon, while fathers swore there was nothing finer after a day in the fields. Oral histories recall the ritual of the harvest pie, the pride in a well-made crust, and the way Fidget fed the workers who brought the crops home. Yet fidget pie could not survive the supermarket age. As the connection between kitchen and harvest faded, so did the recipe. Today, fidget pie survives only in Shropshire and in the memories of those who remember when the seasons dictated what went on the plate. Pressed beef lined the sandwich tins of factory workers across industrial Britain. It was a cold cut so common it barely earned mention, yet it fueled millions through the working day. Butchers simmered brisket or silverside with onions and spices until tender, then pressed the meat into molds weighted overnight until firm and sliceable. By 1954, pressed beef appeared on butchers' counters from Manchester to Birmingham. Its dense, rosy slices were the taste of the lunch hour. Workers ate it between slices of bread with mustard or pickle, the meat held together in satisfying layers. The flavor was rich and beefy, the texture firm but yielding, and the cost low enough for even the tightest household budget. Children carried pressed beef sandwiches to school, fathers carried them to the factory, and mothers sliced the joint carefully to make it last the week. Oral histories recall the ritual of the Monday pressing, the weight on the meat, and the satisfaction of a lunch that traveled without complaint. Yet pressed beef could not survive the supermarket revolution. The shrink-wrapped sliced meats that filled the chill cabinets were uniform and bland, while the skill of pressing faded with the independent butchers. Today, pressed beef survives only in delicatessens and the memories of those who grew up when lunch meant a proper sandwich. Number 4. Brains on toast tested the nerve and satisfied the hunger of working men across Britain, a dish that made use of what the abattoir provided when nothing could be wasted. Housewives soaked calves or lamb's brains in salted water, peeled away the membrane, then poached and sliced before frying in butter until golden. By 1953, brains appeared on breakfast and supper tables across Britain, their creamy, delicate texture a quiet luxury in homes where offal was simply food, not novelty. The taste was mild and rich, almost like scrambled eggs but denser, and the smell as they fried was of butter and honest protein. Children were not always told what they were eating, while fathers ate with the knowledge that brains were good for you, whatever the modern world might say. Oral histories recall the ritual of preparing the brains, the patience required for soaking and cleaning, and the satisfaction of a dish that cost pennies but delivered nutrition. Yet brains could not survive changing tastes. As BSE scares swept through the nation and offal became unfashionable, the dish vanished from tables almost overnight. Today, brains on toast survive only in the memories of the oldest generation who remember when nothing from the animal was wasted. Number 3. Rumblethumps warmed Scottish borders cottages with a simplicity that belied its comfort, a dish of potatoes, cabbage, and cheese baked until bubbling and golden. Housewives mashed boiled potatoes with cooked cabbage, spread the mixture in a baking dish, covered with grated cheese, and grilled until the top crisped and the inside stayed soft and creamy. By 1956, Rumblethumps appeared on tables across the borders, its humble ingredients transformed by heat into something almost celebratory. The cheese formed a crust that shattered at the touch of a spoon, while the vegetables beneath were soft and comforting. Children scraped the edges of the dish for the crispiest bits. Fathers claimed the center where the cheese pooled thickest, and mothers served with quiet pride in a dish that stretched leftovers into a proper supper. Oral histories recall the ritual of the Rumblethumps, the arguments over the proper cheese, and the satisfaction of a meal that cost nothing but tasted like plenty. Yet Rumblethumps could not survive unchanged. As convenience foods filled the freezers and the slow ritual of mashing and baking faded, the dish retreated from everyday tables. Today, Rumblethumps survives in borders pubs and the kitchens of those who remember when supper meant making something from nothing. Number 2. Black peas fed the Lancashire crowds on bonfire night and beyond, a dish so local it rarely crossed county lines. Yet it sustained generations through the coldest months. Market stallholders soaked dried black peas overnight, simmered them for hours with a ham bone and a splash of malt vinegar, then served them steaming in paper cups to crowds gathered around the flames. By 1958, black peas appeared at fairs, markets, and football grounds across Lancashire, their earthy, vinegary flavor, the taste of autumn and celebration. The peas were soft but held their shape, the broth thin and smoky from the ham, and the warmth welcome on nights when breath misted and fingers numbed. Children queued with pennies clutched tight, workers ate between pints, and everyone agreed that black peas meant the cold season had properly begun. Oral histories recall the ritual of the bonfire night peas, the smell drifting across the fairground, and the fierce local pride in a dish that belonged to Lancashire alone. Yet black peas could not survive the supermarket age. As the fairs shrank and the market stalls closed, the recipe faded from everyday life. Today, black peas survive at a handful of traditional events, but the everyday suppers they once anchored have largely vanished. Number 1. Tatty scones crowned the Scottish working breakfast as the undisputed champion of the griddle. A flatbread so simple and so perfect, it needed nothing but a frying pan and a hungry belly. Housewives mashed leftover potatoes with flour, butter, and a pinch of salt, rolled the dough thin, and cooked it on a hot griddle until brown spots appeared and the edges crisped. By 1955, tatty scones appeared on breakfast plates from Glasgow to Dundee, served alongside bacon, eggs, black pudding, and beans in the full Scottish fry-up that fueled a nation of workers. The taste was mild and earthy, the texture soft inside and slightly crisp outside, and the scones soaked up the bacon fat and egg yolk like sponges designed for the purpose. Children ate them straight from the griddle, too hot to hold but too good to wait, while fathers demanded extras and mothers flipped batch after batch until the morning rush was fed. Oral histories recall the smell of tatty scones frying, the sizzle of the butter, and the way the breakfast table fell silent as plates were cleared. For generations, the tatty scone was the foundation of the working morning, the fuel that carried men to the shipyards, the mines, and the factories, and women to the mills and the markets. Yet tatty scones could not survive the supermarket age unchanged. The frozen versions that appeared in plastic packs were pale imitations, lacking the floury dust and griddle char of the homemade original. As breakfast shrank to cereal and toast, the full fry-up retreated from daily life, taking the tatty scone with it. Today, tatty scones survive in Scottish cafes and the kitchens of those who refuse to surrender the old ways, but the everyday breakfasts that once fueled a working nation have largely vanished. The griddle has cooled, the potatoes have been replaced by convenience, but the memory of what was lost lingers on, a reminder of the mornings when Scotland fed itself with nothing but potatoes, flour, and the will to keep going. Across all 20 entries, from the cheese and onion pudding that opened our list to the triumphant tatty scone at the very top, these forgotten working man's dinners tell a powerful story of labor, thrift, and honest eating. Some dishes, like brains on toast and potted hough, stand out as the most striking reminders of a time when nothing could be wasted, and every cut had its purpose. Others, such as pie and mash and Staffordshire oatcakes, reveal how regional pride and local industry shaped the working-class table in ways that supermarket uniformity could never replicate. The common thread throughout is fuel, the need to fill bellies that would work hard and ask for nothing but a hot meal at the end of the day. These were not meals of choice, but of necessity, dishes born in kitchens where the dinner break was short and the budget was shorter. Yet for the families who ate them, these working man's dinners were also the taste of honest labor, the smell of griddles and frying pans in kitchens where everyone earned their supper. This ranking is not just about what disappeared from our kitchens, but what these dishes represent. The fuel that built ships and fired kilns, the food that carried a nation through shifts and seasons, and the quiet dignity of meals that asked nothing but gave everything. In the end, these 20 lost dinners are more than recipes. They are the taste of a Britain that worked with its hands, ate what it could afford, and found strength around tables that have long since fallen silent.